Chosen one, are you tired of feeling like you're living someone else's life? Are you exhausted from chasing dreams that leave you emptier than when you started? Have you reached that sacred age where you're finally asking yourself, what was it all for? If you're watching this, it's not random. This is your divine interruption. Heaven's been trying to reach you. Listen to me carefully, beloved. You've lived long enough to know that life doesn't always make sense, but some moments carry weight. This is one of those moments. Something shifted in the atmosphere the second you clicked on this video. You felt it, didn't you? That stirring, that recognition. That's not your imagination, that's your spirit awakening to truth. You are a chosen one. I don't say that lightly. I don't throw that phrase around like some feel-good platitude. You've felt it your entire life, that deep ache, that whisper in the quiet moments, that persistent sense of something more. While others seemed content with the surface, you've always known you were made for deeper waters. But here's what's breaking my heart tonight. What if everything you've been chasing was the wrong thing? Picture this. You've spent decades walking down a long hallway, trying key after key on door after door. Success, security, recognition, love. Each one promised to unlock the life you were meant to live. But door after door remained sealed. Not because you weren't worthy, but because you were holding the wrong keychain entirely. The enemy has been masterful at this deception. He's convinced an entire generation that fulfillment comes from accumulation, that worth comes from achievement, that peace comes from position. But you know better now, don't you? You know that none of those things filled the God-shaped hole in your soul. Tonight, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant a seed into this ministry, not from obligation, but from overflow. Right now, something is shifting in the spiritual realm. The veil is thinning. God is about to reveal what you've been missing, what truly matters. And when He does, everything changes. Comment 777 below if you feel something shifting in your spirit. That's not emotion, it's confirmation. That's heaven saying, welcome home, chosen one. We've been waiting for you. Don't you dare scroll past this moment. Your eternity depends on what happens next. You've worked 40, 50, maybe 60 years of your life, so why does your soul still feel restless? You've checked every box society told you to check, climbed every ladder they said would lead to fulfillment. So why are you lying awake at 3 a.m., wondering if any of it mattered? You've survived decades that would break younger generations, weathered storms that would crush weaker spirits. So why does that gnawing emptiness in your chest refuse to go away? Listen to me, dear one. You are living in the greatest distraction campaign in human history. And the enemy has been so masterful at it that you don't even realize you've been robbed. Picture this. You're 65, 70, maybe 80 years old. You've raised children who barely call. You've buried friends who promised they'd be there forever. You've fought wars, literal wars, or the daily wars of surviving in America, and yet here you are, scrolling through your phone at midnight, wondering why retirement feels more like exile than reward. The world sold you a lie, and you bought it with your life. They told you happiness lived in the next promotion, the bigger house, the fatter retirement account. They convinced you that if you just worked harder, saved more, achieved greater, you'd finally find peace. But here's what they didn't tell you. You've been seeking externally what God buried within you from the moment you took your first breath. You've been searching for God in all the wrong places. Matthew 6:33 isn't just a Bible verse, it's a roadmap out of the maze you've been trapped in for decades. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. All these things, not some things, not a few things, all things. But you've been seeking first the kingdom of stuff, the kingdom of status, the kingdom of what other people think about you, and it's left you spiritually bankrupt. You know how to keep busy. Lord knows you've mastered that art. You can fill every hour of every day with activities, appointments, obligations, but have you forgotten how to be still? Have you forgotten how to sit in the presence of the Almighty and let him speak to your weary soul? The noise of modern life isn't just loud, it's demonic. It's designed to keep you distracted from the one thing that could set your spirit free: intimacy with your Creator. You've been so busy climbing ladders that you never stopped to ask if they were leaning against the right wall. I'm talking to the grandmother who gave her best years to everyone else and now wonders if God even knows her name. I'm talking to the grandfather who built an empire but can't remember the last time he felt truly alive. I'm talking to the widow who sits in a house full of memories but feels more alone than she did at 25. You've been running on empty for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to be full. The American dream promised you that if you worked hard enough, saved long enough, and accumulated enough, you'd finally arrive at contentment. But contentment isn't a destination, it's a person, and his name is Jesus Christ. You've spent your whole life collecting treasures that moths can destroy and thieves can steal, but you've neglected the treasure that's eternal, unshakable, and sitting right there in your spirit, waiting to be discovered. The clock is ticking, beloved. Not just the clock on your wall, the clock of your eternity. How many more years do you have to waste chasing shadows? How many more nights will you lie awake feeling like you've missed the point of your entire existence? You were not put on this earth to pay bills and die. You were not created to be a consumer, a taxpayer, a social security number. You were fearfully and wonderfully made to be a vessel of God's glory, a carrier of his presence, a living temple of the Most High. But the enemy has convinced you that your purpose is in your past, that your best days are behind you, that retirement is about winding down instead of finally winding up for what God has been preparing you for your entire life. This is the great deception, that your value decreases with your age, that your calling expires with your career, that your fire should fade with your physical strength. But God's economy works differently. In his kingdom, your latter days are supposed to be greater than your former days. Your wisdom is supposed to increase, not decrease. Your spiritual authority is supposed to deepen, not diminish. You've been distracted by the temporal while missing the eternal. You've been focused on the seen while ignoring the unseen. You've been living for time while your spirit yearns for eternity. The saddest tragedy isn't that you've wasted years, it's that you're about to waste whatever years you have left if you don't wake up right now. If this is resonating, don't scroll, stay. There's something coming that will rewire everything you thought you knew about your purpose, your calling, and why God has kept you on this earth longer than many of your peers. Because what I'm about to show you isn't just going to change your perspective, it's going to ignite a fire in your bones that will burn away every distraction and leave you standing face to face with the reason you were born. You know what breaks my heart? I've watched an entire generation of God's most powerful warriors convinced they're past their prime, sitting in rocking chairs, believing their best days are behind them, thinking they've missed their calling because they're not 25 anymore. But what if I told you that everything you've been told about timing is a lie? Listen to me, beloved. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are not forgotten. You are a chosen one, and God has been preparing you for this exact moment your entire life. Let me tell you what chosen really means. It doesn't mean you're perfect. Lord knows we've all stumbled. It doesn't mean you're popular. Half the world might think you're outdated. Being chosen means you've been set apart, marked, selected by the Almighty for a purpose so profound that hell itself trembles at the thought of you walking in it. You are a torchbearer in a world growing darker by the day. You are a lighthouse standing strong while storms rage around you. You are a silent general in spiritual warfare, and the enemy has been praying you'd never realize it. The world looks at your gray hair and sees decline. God looks at your gray hair and sees wisdom. The world sees your wrinkles and thinks weakness. God sees your wrinkles and knows each one was carved by experience, by endurance, by a lifetime of not giving up. Moses was 80 years old when God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. 80. Can you imagine? While the world was writing him off as a has-been, God was saying, "Now you're ready." Moses had spent 40 years in the palace learning leadership, 40 years in the wilderness learning humility, and at 80, he was finally prepared to part the Red Sea. Sarah was 90 years old when she became a mother. 90. When every natural law said it was impossible, God said, "Watch me do the impossible through my chosen one." Her laughter became the foundation of nations. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she held baby Jesus in her arms. She had prayed and fasted for decades, and people probably thought she was just a crazy old woman. But God had positioned her to be one of the first to recognize the Messiah. Her waiting wasn't wasted, it was warfare. Do you see the pattern? God doesn't call the youthful, he calls the willing. He doesn't choose the energetic, he chooses the experienced. He doesn't pick the popular, he picks the prepared. You've been in boot camp your whole life, and you didn't even know it. Every heartbreak trained your compassion. Every failure taught you humility. Every loss prepared you for victory. Every year added another layer of wisdom, another degree of understanding, another level of spiritual authority. The enemy has been whispering lies. You're too old. You've missed your chance. Your time is over. But I'm here to tell you, those whispers are from the pit of hell itself, because Satan knows something you're just now remembering. You are dangerous to his kingdom. You know what the enemy fears most? Not the 25-year-old with passion but no wisdom. Not the 40-year-old with ambition but no character. He fears the 70-year-old who's been refined by fire, who's learned to trust God in the darkness, who's discovered that man's rejection is often God's protection. You're not behind. You're right on time. You haven't missed it. You are it. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, something is stirring in your spirit. It's been dormant for so long you thought it was dead, but God is breathing on dry bones. He's calling seeds that have been buried in winter soil to break through the surface. You feel it, don't you? That quickening, that recognition. That's not nostalgia, that's activation. That's heaven saying, "It's time, chosen one. It's time to remember who you are." The young generation is looking for direction. The middle-aged are drowning in confusion. But you carry something they don't have. You carry the wisdom of experience, the strength of survival, the authority of someone who's walked with God through every season of life. Your children need your prayers more than your money. Your grandchildren need your blessing more than your babysitting. Your community needs your wisdom more than your retirement. The world needs your light more than your silence. You think you're in the sunset of your life, but God is preparing you for the sunrise of your purpose. You think you're winding down, but heaven is about to wind you up. You think you're in the final act, but God is about to reveal that everything up until now was just rehearsal. The mark of the chosen isn't youth, it's willingness. It isn't strength, it's surrender. It isn't perfection, it's preparation. And beloved, you have been prepared for such a time as this. If this word feels like it's piercing through decades of silence, if something in your spirit is stirring that's been quiet for too long, I need you to say it out loud right now. I was chosen. I receive it. Say it like you mean it. Say it like you believe it. Say it like your very life depends on it, because it does. But here's what I need you to understand. Recognition is only the beginning. Now comes the real question that will determine everything that follows. You've buried too much to believe your life is ordinary. Let me speak directly to your heart tonight, dear one. You didn't stumble into this darkness by accident. Those sleepless nights when you stared at the ceiling, wondering if you'd ever feel whole again. Those moments when you questioned everything, your faith, your purpose, your very existence. That wasn't random chaos. That was spiritual warfare. And you've been winning battles you didn't even know you were fighting. Look at your life, really look at it. How many times have you walked through fire and emerged, scarred but breathing? How many midnight phone calls have you endured? How many hospital waiting rooms have you paced? How many times have you held divorce papers in trembling hands, wondering how 30 years of marriage could dissolve into legal jargon? You've stood at gravesites, watching dirt fall on dreams you thought would last forever. You've cleaned out the belongings of people who promised they'd never leave. You've faced rejection so profound it rewrote your understanding of love. You've battled sickness that made you question if God had forgotten your address. And after decades of service, after climbing every ladder society told you mattered, retirement hit like a freight train. Suddenly, the identity you'd built for 40 years was gone. The corner office, the important meetings, the sense of being needed vanished. You woke up one morning and realized you didn't know who you were anymore. But here's what the enemy never wanted you to discover. Every single attack on your life was actually confirmation of your calling. Romans 8:28 doesn't just say some things work together for good. It says all things. That betrayal that nearly destroyed you, that financial collapse that left you starting over at 60, that diagnosis that changed everything. God has been weaving those threads into a tapestry of purpose you couldn't see from ground level. The enemy didn't fight your past. He feared your future. Think about it logically. Why would hell unleash such fury on an ordinary person? Why would the powers of darkness invest so much energy in derailing someone who wasn't destined for something extraordinary? The very intensity of your battles is proof of your importance in God's kingdom. You think you've been losing, but you've been training. Every setback was boot camp. Every betrayal was building spiritual muscle. Every loss was teaching you to hold on to what truly matters. The enemy thought he was destroying you, but God was developing you. What felt like punishment was actually preparation. Consider Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison, forgotten by those he'd helped. For 13 years, it looked like God had abandoned him. But Genesis 50:20 reveals the truth. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. You were sold into hardship, but destined for the palace. Every prison you've endured has been preparing you for promotion. Every pit has been positioning you for power, not earthly power, spiritual authority. The kind that comes from walking through hell and emerging with your faith intact. The kind that can look at tragedy and still declare, God is good. Your pain has been producing something powerful. Your suffering has been sanctifying your spirit. Your battles have been building your testimony. And now, in this season of your life, God is about to reveal why you had to go through everything you've been through. But here's the shocking truth that will change everything. The enemy's greatest fear isn't your success, it's your surrender. He's not worried about what you might achieve. He's terrified of what you might become when you finally stop fighting God's plan and start flowing with it. You've spent decades trying to make sense of your story, trying to justify the pain, trying to explain the delays, trying to rationalize the detours. But what if your story was never meant to make sense to anyone but God? What if every closed door was protecting you from a path that would have destroyed your destiny? What if every rejection was redirecting you towards something greater? What if every loss was making room for something larger? The storm you've been walking through isn't random weather. It's the atmosphere that creates diamonds. It's the pressure that produces pearls. It's the fire that refines gold. And you, beloved, are emerging from this storm as precious metal purified, powerful, and ready for your divine assignment. Your scars aren't signs of defeat. They're proof of victory. They're evidence that hell tried to take you out, but heaven said, "Not today." They're testimonies written in flesh, declaring that God's strength is made perfect in weakness. Take a moment. Breathe. Whisper this: "I've survived too much to settle now." The question isn't whether you'll make it through this storm. You already have. The question is, what will you do with the authority you've gained? How will you use the wisdom you've earned? Who will you become now that you know what you're truly capable of surviving? Because something tells me your greatest chapter isn't behind you, it's about to begin. Beloved, let me tell you something that will shake you to your core. This isn't just a message, it's an appointment, and heaven's waiting for your response. I need you to understand something about divine timing. You didn't accidentally stumble onto this video at 2 a.m. when you couldn't sleep. You didn't randomly click on this while scrolling through endless distractions. No, dear one, you were summoned here. God has been orchestrating events, aligning circumstances, moving heaven and earth to get you to this exact moment. You see, there's something the enemy desperately doesn't want you to discover. For decades, he's kept you busy with careers that consumed your soul, busy with relationships that drained your spirit, busy with pursuits that promised fulfillment but delivered emptiness. And now, in what should be your golden years, you're sitting there wondering, was that it? Was that all there was? But God has been waiting for you to get tired of the shallow end, waiting for you to realize that everything you've been chasing has been a counterfeit of what he's been offering all along. Let me share something that happened just last week. A widow from Tennessee, 73 years old, wrote to me. She said, "Pastor, I thought my life was over when my husband passed. I thought I had nothing left to give." But God revealed to her that her deepest pain had become her greatest ministry. She's now counseling other widows, showing them that their story isn't over, it's just beginning a new chapter. Then there's Robert, a grandfather from Ohio, retired at 67, felt useless, forgotten. But God showed him that his decades of experience, his failures, his victories, they weren't just his past, they were his credentials for mentoring young men who desperately need a father figure. Today, he's pouring into lives that were heading toward destruction. Do you see what's happening here? God doesn't retire you, he redirects you. He doesn't shelf you. He refines you for your greatest assignment yet. But here's what's crushing my spirit tonight. I see so many of you sitting on the sidelines watching life pass by, thinking you've missed your moment. You've convinced yourself that God's plan was for your younger years. That purpose was for people with more energy, more time, more everything. Chosen one, that's a lie straight from the pit of hell. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead a nation. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to promise. Abraham was 75 when God told him to leave everything familiar and step into destiny. If God can use them at their age, what makes you think he's done with you? Let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. Are you waiting for God to move, or is God waiting for you to move? Because delayed obedience is disobedience. And right now, there are people dying spiritually, emotionally, relationally, because you're sitting on the calling God placed in your heart. You know what I'm talking about. That thing that keeps stirring in your spirit, that idea that won't leave you alone, that burden that keeps you awake at night, that dream you've been calling silly or unrealistic because the world told you it was too late. But what if it's not too late? What if this is your Esther moment? Queen Esther could have stayed silent. She could have played it safe, enjoyed her comfortable position in the palace. But Mordecai challenged her with words that echo through eternity. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? For such a time as this. Not for yesterday, not for someday, for this time, for this moment, for this generation that desperately needs what you carry. The world is falling apart, dear one. Families are fracturing. Young people are lost. Hope is dying. And you're sitting there thinking you're too old, too tired, too late. God is saying, I need my seasoned warriors. I need people who've walked through fire and lived to tell about it. I need voices that carry authority because they've been tested by time. You've survived the Great Depression's aftermath. You've weathered wars, recessions, heartbreaks, losses. You've buried parents, maybe even children. You've seen dreams die and watched miracles unfold. That's not your disqualification, that's your credentials. The enemy wants you to believe your best days are behind you, but God is saying your greatest impact is still ahead of you. Your most powerful prayers haven't been prayed yet. Your most profound influence hasn't been felt yet. Your most important words haven't been spoken yet. If not now, when? If not you, who? How many more mornings will you wake up feeling like you're just marking time? How many more nights will you go to bed wondering if your life mattered? How many more opportunities will you let slip by because you convinced yourself you were too old, too late, too tired? The young generation is crying out for wisdom. They're drowning in information but starving for revelation. They need someone who's been where they're going. They need someone who's made the mistakes they're about to make. They need you. But you have to say yes. You have to stop making excuses. You have to stop hiding behind your age, your circumstances, your limitations. Right now, I need you to stand up from your seat. Yes, right now. Lay your hand on your heart. Feel it beating. That's not just blood pumping, that's purpose pulsing. That's destiny calling. That's God saying, I'm not done with you yet. Now say this out loud. Lord, I won't ignore it anymore. I won't waste another day. I won't let fear decide my future. Use me, Lord. Use me now. Can you feel that? That's the sound of heaven responding. That's the sound of your destiny awakening. That's the sound of everything about to change. Chosen one, can you feel it? That electricity in the air? That's not static. That's the sound of destiny calling your name. You've been sitting in that pew for decades, listening to sermons about other people's miracles. But tonight, I need you to understand something that will shatter every limitation you've accepted about your golden years. You are the miracle now, not tomorrow, not when you feel more ready, not when circumstances align perfectly. Right now, in this moment, with your weathered hands and your accumulated wisdom, with your scars and your stories, you are God's living, breathing message to a world that's forgotten what authentic faith looks like. Do you remember the locked hallway from the beginning? All those doors you tried to open with the wrong keys? Here's the shocking truth that's going to change everything. The key was in your pocket all along. It wasn't hidden in some distant blessing or future breakthrough. It was embedded in your DNA the moment God breathed life into your lungs. But the enemy has been whispering lies to you for decades. You're too old. You missed your season. Your best days are behind you. Listen to me carefully. That's not God's voice. That's the sound of hell trembling because it knows what happens when a seasoned warrior finally realizes their true identity. You think you're walking into retirement? You're walking into relevance, into your legacy, into the most powerful chapter of your existence. Look at Moses, 80 years old, when God called him to lead a nation out of bondage. 80. When the world said he was past his prime, God said he was just getting started. The burning bush didn't appear to a young seminary graduate. It appeared to a man who had lived long enough to know that human strength fails, but God's strength never does. Your pain wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every heartbreak, every loss, every night, you cried yourself to sleep, thinking God had forgotten. All of it was shaping you into a vessel that could carry the weight of His glory without breaking. That divorce that nearly destroyed you, that's your ministry to broken marriages. That financial crisis that brought you to your knees, that's your testimony to people drowning in debt who think God can't provide. That prodigal child who broke your heart, that's your platform to speak hope to desperate parents who think their kids are too far gone. You're not just a listener anymore. You are a living letter written by the finger of God Himself. 2 Corinthians 3:3 says, "You are a letter from Christ, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts." Your story is a sermon. Your resilience is a revelation. Your very existence is evidence that God keeps His promises. But here's what's breaking my heart tonight. How many of you are sitting on testimonies that could change lives, but you're keeping them locked in your chest because you think nobody wants to hear from someone your age? The church doesn't need another smooth-talking 20-something with perfect teeth and a perfect life. The world is starving for authentic voices that have been through the fire and came out refined, not consumed. Voices that can say, "I know God is faithful because I've watched Him work for 70, 80, 90 years." You are that voice. Right now, there's a generation watching you. Your children, your grandchildren, your neighbors, they're not just looking for success stories, they're looking for survival stories. They want to know if faith actually works when life gets real, when the doctor delivers bad news, when the bank account runs dry, when the person you loved most walks away. And you beautiful battle-tested warrior, you have the proof they need. This is your inheritance declaration, not an inheritance you're waiting to receive, but an inheritance you're about to leave. Not just money or property, but something far more valuable, the legacy of unwavering faith. Isaiah 46:4 says, "Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am He who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you." God didn't sustain you all these years just so you could fade quietly into the background. He sustained you so you could stand as a living monument to His faithfulness. So you could be the answer to someone's prayer. So you could be the miracle they've been waiting for. The world is about to witness something unprecedented. A generation of silver-haired warriors who refuse to go gentle into that good night. Who understand that their sunset years aren't the end of their story. They're the climax. You're not missing what matters most anymore. You are what matters most. You're not searching for purpose. You are the purpose. Every gray hair is a crown of glory. Every wrinkle is a testimony line. Every ache in your joints is a reminder that you're still here, still fighting, still believing when others have given up. The enemy thought he could silence you with age, but God is about to amplify your voice across generations. The world thought you were irrelevant, but heaven is about to prove them wrong. If you're ready to live the rest of your life, fully awake, fully aligned, drop a comment. I will not miss what matters most. Then share this message with someone you love. Don't just keep it, pass it on. Because chosen one, your greatest miracle isn't what God did for you yesterday, it's what He's about to do through you today. You've carried pain you never told anyone about. You buried it, pushed it down, covered it with Sunday smiles, but heaven saw it all. Listen to me, dear one. That weight you've been carrying for decades, that crushing burden that sits on your chest when you wake up at 3 a.m. it has a name. It's called spiritual warfare, and you've been fighting a battle most people can't even see. You thought you were losing your mind when that depression hit out of nowhere. You blamed yourself when your marriage crumbled despite your prayers, You questioned God when your children walked away from everything you taught them. But what if I told you that none of that was random? What if every attack was calculated, targeted, and personal? The enemy has been studying you since you were a child. He saw the light in your eyes during that first communion. He witnessed your tears during that revival meeting when you were 16. He felt the power when you first laid hands on someone and prayed. And right then, right there, you became a marked target. In Ephesians 6:12, Paul warns us, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world." This isn't metaphorical language, beloved. This is military intelligence. You've been fighting an invisible war, and the enemy has been winning because you didn't even know you were on the battlefield. Think about it. Why has your life been so much harder than others? Why have you faced betrayal from people you trusted most? Why have your prayers seemed to hit the ceiling while others walked in supernatural breakthrough? The answer isn't that God loves you less. The answer is that hell fears you more. Every financial setback when you were about to step into ministry, every health crisis right before your breakthrough, every relationship that exploded when you were growing spiritually. These weren't coincidences. These were strategic attacks from an enemy who knew exactly who you were becoming. You are a lighthouse, chosen one, built to stand on the rocky shores of this world, designed to guide lost souls through the storm. But here's what lighthouses endure. They face the worst weather. They take the hardest hits. The waves crash against them relentlessly because they threaten the darkness that wants to keep ships lost at sea. The enemy tried to crack you at your foundation. He sent wave after wave of trauma, disappointment, and heartbreak, hoping to extinguish your light. But you're still standing, aren't you? Battered, maybe. Scarred, definitely. But still standing. And do you know why? Because lighthouses aren't built to be comfortable. They're built to be unbreakable. I need you to understand something that will change everything. The reason the storm hit so hard wasn't because you were weak. It was because hell knew you were marked. In Daniel 10, we read about a 21-day delay in answered prayer. The angel finally arrives and explains, "The prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Even Daniel's prayers faced warfare in the heavenly realm. If Daniel faced spiritual resistance, what makes you think your journey would be any different? Your suffering hasn't been meaningless. It's been strategic. Hell has been trying to break you because heaven has been preparing you. Every tear you've cried in secret has been collected in God's bottle. Every prayer you've whispered in desperation has been recorded in heaven's court. Every moment you wanted to quit but kept going has been adding to your spiritual authority. You think you're just getting older, but God is positioning you for your greatest impact. You think your best days are behind you, but heaven sees your finest hour approaching. The enemy knows that seasoned warriors are the most dangerous, and that's why he's been so relentless in his attacks. Look at Moses, 80 years old when God called him to deliver Israel. Look at Abraham, 99 when God promised him a son. Look at Anna, 84 when she prophesied over the Christ child. Your age isn't a limitation, it's a weapon. Your experience isn't a burden, it's your arsenal. The scars on your heart aren't signs of defeat. They're proof of survival. They're evidence that you've been through hell and came out the other side still believing, still trusting, still standing. That's not weakness, dear one. That's the mark of a spiritual warrior. But here's what the enemy never counted on. Your pain was preparing you for your purpose. Your trauma was training you for your triumph. Every attack was actually building the very strength you'd need to fulfill your destiny. The reason you felt so alone in your battles is because you've been fighting in a dimension most people can't see. But your isolation is about to end. Your vindication is about to begin. And your victory is about to be so loud that hell will regret ever targeting you. If this feels like it's reaching into the places you've sealed, comment below. I'm done hiding the hurt. That's the first step to healing. That's the beginning of your breakthrough. Because what you're about to discover next will shatter every lie the enemy has whispered about your worth, your purpose, and your future. The war has been brutal, but the victory is about to be even more powerful. You know what I realized about you, dear one? You've been carrying a secret your entire life. A gift so profound, so sacred, that the enemy has spent decades convincing you it was a curse. You saw things, felt shifts in the room before anyone else noticed. You'd walk into a gathering and immediately sense the tension nobody was talking about. You'd meet someone new, and something in your spirit would whisper caution while everyone else was charmed. You woke up from dreams that felt more real than waking life dreams that later unfolded in reality with startling precision. And what did the world tell you? You're too sensitive. You're imagining things. You're being dramatic. You thought you were crazy. You weren't. You were chosen. Let me paint you a picture that'll shake you to your core. You were the one who smelled rain when the sky was still clear. While others planned their picnics, you were already reaching for umbrellas. They called you a pessimist. But when the storm hit, who did they run to for shelter? You. Because deep down, they knew you saw what they couldn't. This isn't coincidence, beloved. This is divine design. Turn with me to Luke chapter 2, verses 36 through 38. Here we meet Anna, 84-year-old prophetess, who never left the temple. The scripture says she spoke about the child to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. Anna had spent decades in preparation, decades being dismissed as just another old woman praying too much. But when the Messiah arrived, she was the first to recognize him, not the priests, not the scholars, her. Why? Because she had the seer's edge. You've had that same edge your whole life, haven't you? That ability to discern spiritual atmospheres, to sense when something was off in your marriage before your spouse even knew it, to feel the weight of someone's hidden pain across a crowded room, to know which path to take when everyone else was confused. But here's what breaks my heart: you've been apologizing for this gift instead of embracing it. Listen to me carefully. When you were young, you probably learned to dim this light. Society taught you it was inappropriate to mention what you sensed. Churches told you to be quiet. Family members rolled their eyes when you'd say, "Something doesn't feel right about this." So you learned to suppress the very thing God placed in you to guide and protect others. But at 70, 80, 90 years old, aren't you tired of pretending you don't see what you see? The prophet Samuel was just a boy when God called him. In 1 Samuel 3:10, young Samuel finally responded, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." But here's what most people miss: Samuel's spiritual sight didn't diminish with age. It sharpened, it deepened, it became more accurate. And the same is happening to you right now. You're at that sacred age where the veil between the natural and supernatural is thinnest, where your discernment is at its peak, where your spiritual antennae are more sensitive than they've ever been. But instead of celebrating this gift, you've been wondering if you're losing your mind. No, dear one, you're not losing your mind. You're gaining spiritual sight. Think about it. How many times have you had a feeling about someone that proved absolutely correct? How many times have you sensed danger and steered your family away from it? How many times have you woken up with someone heavy on your heart, called them, and discovered they desperately needed prayer? That's not intuition. That's the gift of prophecy operating in your life. But here's the enemy's masterpiece of deception. He's convinced you that this gift is for everyone else, for the young pastor, for the prophetic conference speaker, for someone more qualified. Meanwhile, you're sitting there with decades of proven accuracy, doubting whether God could possibly use you. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over the infant Jesus. Simeon was elderly when he declared, "Lord, now let your servant depart in peace, for my eyes have seen your salvation." The older you get, the more refined your spiritual vision becomes. You weren't made to fit in, you were made to see ahead. While others are looking at the surface, you're seeing the depths. While others are celebrating the promotion, you're sensing the pride that's about to cause a fall. While others are rushing into relationships, you're seeing the red flags they're ignoring. This is your calling, beloved. This is your sacred responsibility. But let me tell you what's about to happen. God is about to sharpen this gift to a razor's edge. The spiritual climate is intensifying, and he needs seers who can navigate these treacherous waters. He needs someone who can smell the rain before the storm hits. The question isn't whether you have this gift, you do. The question is, will you finally stop apologizing for it and start operating in it? Your family needs your spiritual sight. Your church needs your discernment. This generation needs your prophetic voice, but they can't benefit from what you keep hidden. It's time to stop whispering and start declaring. It's time to stop sensing and start speaking. It's time to stop hiding and start leading. Drop A in the comments if you've had that gift your whole life but never understood it. God's about to sharpen it like never before. But I need to warn you about something that's coming next. Something that will challenge everything you think you know about your purpose in this final season of life. Now listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to share with you will shatter everything you thought you knew about your life. Everything you've believed about coincidence, about chance, about random encounters, it's all about to crumble under the weight of divine truth. You didn't stumble into this moment. You didn't accidentally click on this video. You weren't randomly scrolling through YouTube when this found you. No, beloved, this is far more sacred than that. This is the sound of heaven's gavel falling, and your name echoing through eternity's courtroom. Ephesians 1-4 declares something that should make every fiber of your being tremble with awe. He chose us in him before the foundation of the world, before the first star was hung in space, before the first wave crashed on an empty shore, before time itself drew its first breath. God looked into the future and said, "I want that one." Do you understand what that means? When you were nothing but a thought in the mind of God, when your great-great-great-grandmother wasn't even a possibility, when the earth was without form and void, you were already chosen. You were already marked. You were already his. But here's what's going to revolutionize your understanding tonight. This isn't just about a calling anymore. This is about a covenant. There's a difference, and that difference will change everything about how you see your existence. A calling is an invitation. A covenant is a blood-signed contract. A calling can be declined. A covenant is irrevocable. A calling is about what you do. A covenant is about who you are. Picture this. There's paperwork in heaven with your name on it, not typed, not printed, written in the golden ink of divine intention by the finger of the Almighty himself. It's been sitting there, waiting for 70, 80, 90 years of your life. And tonight, you're finally seeing it. Every heartbreak that nearly destroyed you, it's in the contract. Every miracle that saved you when you should have died, it's in the contract. Every time you felt alone and forgotten, you weren't. You were being prepared for this very moment when you would discover that you're not just surviving, you're fulfilling an eternal agreement. You want to know why your life has been different, why you've felt like an outsider even in your own family, why you've carried burdens that seemed too heavy for one person to bear. Because you're not just anyone, you're a covenant holder. You're bound by sacred agreement to carry the DNA of heaven in your mortal frame. And here's what's going to shock you. You've been fighting this covenant your entire life. You've been running from it, hiding from it, pretending it doesn't exist. You've spent decades trying to be normal, trying to fit in, trying to quiet that persistent voice that keeps saying, "There's more, there's more, there's more." But tonight, the running stops. Tonight, the hiding ends. Tonight, you stop pretending that you're just another face in the crowd, and you start owning the truth that you are a covenant partner with the Creator of the universe. Listen to me. This isn't a motivational video. This is a spiritual courtroom. And heaven just called your name. The bailiff is standing. The judge is entering. And you're about to discover that there's been a case pending in your favor since before you drew your first breath. Every person who hurt you, they were just instruments in God's hands, shaping you for this covenant. Every door that closed in your face, it was protecting you from settling for less than your covenant promises. Every night you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if anyone cared. God was there, whispering, "Hold on, the covenant is coming. Hold on." You've been looking for your purpose in all the wrong places. You thought it was in your career, your relationships, your achievements. But your purpose isn't what you do, it's what you carry. You carry the covenant of the Most High God. You carry His DNA. You carry His authority. You carry His promises. And that covenant comes with benefits that will make your head spin, protection that can't be penetrated, provision that defies economic laws, peace that surpasses human understanding, power that moves mountains and parts seas. Not because you earned it, but because you're bound by covenant. But here's the catch. A covenant requires surrender. It requires you to stop trying to be God and start trusting that God knows what He's doing. It requires you to release your small plans and embrace His impossible dreams. It requires you to die to your will and resurrect in His purpose. Right now, at this very moment, heaven is holding its breath. The angels are leaning forward. The cloud of witnesses is watching. Because you're standing at the threshold of covenant activation, you're one decision away from stepping into a dimension of living that most people never even imagine exists. Write this in the comments as a signature of your surrender. I accept the covenant. Don't just type it, declare it, mean it. Let it echo through the corridors of heaven and shake the gates of hell. Because when you do, everything changes. When you do, the covenant that's been waiting for you since before time began finally finds its home. The question isn't whether you're chosen. The question is, will you choose to accept what you've already been chosen for? Chosen one. I need to speak to something that's been eating at your heart for decades. You've watched others get promoted while you stayed in the same position for 20 years. You've prayed the same desperate prayer night after night, begging God to move, to change your circumstances, to finally answer what you've been crying out for since you were young, and nothing moved. You've stood at countless gravesides, watching friends and family members pass away before seeing their breakthroughs. You've held rejection letters in your trembling hands, wondering if God forgot your address. You've stared at empty bank accounts, broken relationships, and unfulfilled dreams, asking the same burning question that's haunted your sleepless nights. God, where have you been? Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. Every single delay in your life, every closed door, every not yet, every painful waiting season wasn't God punishing you. It was God positioning you. Look at Joseph. This man had dreams of greatness when he was just 17 years old. God showed him visions of leadership, of his family bowing before him, of a destiny that seemed impossible. But what happened next? His own brothers threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery. He spent 13 long years in chains, in prison, forgotten and abandoned. Can you imagine the nights Joseph lay on that cold prison floor, wondering if he'd misheard God's voice? Can you picture him questioning whether those dreams were just the fantasies of a young man? 13 years of wondering if God had made a mistake. But here's what Joseph couldn't see from his prison cell. Every injustice, every betrayal, every moment of suffering was preparing him to save nations. When Pharaoh finally called him from the dungeon to the palace, Joseph didn't just become a leader, He became the second most powerful man in Egypt, with the wisdom to navigate 7 years of famine and save millions of lives. The delay wasn't denial, beloved. It was design. You thought the roots were rotting during all those years of waiting, but they were growing deeper. Every tear you cried in secret was watering something underground that God was preparing. Every night you felt forgotten was a night God was working behind the scenes, moving pieces on a chessboard you couldn't see. Think about this. A California redwood tree can live for over 2,000 years and grow to heights of 380 feet. But here's what most people don't know. These giants don't have deep taproots. Instead, they have shallow root systems that spread out 50 to 80 feet from the base, intertwining with other redwoods. They grow slowly, deliberately, building a foundation that can withstand earthquakes, fires, and storms that would topple lesser trees. That's what God has been doing in your life. While you were focused on the height you wanted to reach, He was building a root system strong enough to sustain the weight of your destiny. Every year you waited wasn't wasted time, it was sacred preparation. Every door that slammed shut wasn't God saying no, it was God protecting you from something that would have destroyed you before you were ready. Every person who walked away wasn't abandonment, it was God making room for the right connections at the right time. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he led Israel out of Egypt. David was anointed king as a teenager, but didn't sit on the throne until he was 30. Jesus himself waited 30 years before beginning his ministry. Even the Son of God had to wait for his moment. But here's what breaks my heart. You've been carrying guilt about the waiting. You've been blaming yourself, thinking you weren't faithful enough, weren't worthy enough, weren't spiritual enough to receive God's blessings. You've watched younger people achieve what you've been praying for, and you've wondered what's wrong with you. Stop it. Stop carrying that lie. The timing wasn't about your worthiness. It was about God's wisdom. He doesn't operate on our timeline. He operates on eternity's schedule. And from eternity's perspective, your delay was perfectly orchestrated. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time, not in your time, not in the world's time, in His time." Every gray hair on your head represents wisdom that couldn't have been gained any other way. Every wrinkle tells a story of endurance that prepared you for this moment. Every sleepless night you survived built the spiritual stamina you'll need for what's coming. You're not too old. You're not too late. You're not forgotten. You're precisely positioned. Delay was never denial. It was design. And right now, in this very moment, all those years of preparation are about to pay dividends you never imagined. The foundation is complete, the roots are deep, the timing is perfect. God has been preparing you for something that required the full weight of your years, the depth of your experience, and the unshakable faith that only comes from walking through decades of trials and still believing. Your delay had a destiny. Your waiting had a purpose. Your pain had a plan. Type "my delay" had a destiny in the comments below, and let heaven know you're ready. Let God know. You finally understand that every year you waited was a year you were being prepared for something greater than you ever dared to dream. The question isn't why it took so long. The question is, now that you know the delay was divine design, what are you going to do with the destiny that's been waiting for you to be ready? Chosen one. As we reach the end of this sacred journey together, I need you to remember 3 eternal truths that will anchor your soul in the storms ahead. First, you are not an accident. Every breath you've taken, every step you've walked, every year you've lived has been divinely orchestrated to bring you to this exact moment. Your life isn't a series of random events, it's a masterpiece painted by the hand of God Himself. Second, your delays were not denials. They were divine preparation. Every closed door protected you from paths that would have destroyed you. Every waiting season deepened your roots for the weight of your destiny. Your timing isn't latate's perfect. Third, what you've been missing isn't found in the world's offerings. It's found in your connection to the one who created you, called you, and has never stopped working behind the scenes of your life. But here's what I need you to understand with every fiber of your being. You are not walking this journey alone. Right now, as you sit watching this message, there are thousands of other chosen ones around the world feeling the same stirring in their spirit. You are part of a community that spans generations, a family that prays together, believes together, and rises together. God hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't given up on you. He hasn't moved on to someone younger, more talented, or more deserving. At this very moment, He is orchestrating circumstances, aligning divine connections, and preparing to open doors that have been sealed for decades. You have a community here ready to stand with you. In the comments below, share your heart. Tell us what God is speaking to you. Ask for prayer. Share your breakthrough. Let others know they're not alone in this battle. This isn't just a YouTube channel, this is a family, and family doesn't let family fight alone. If this message has awakened something deep in your spirit, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear these words. There's a friend, a family member, maybe someone you haven't spoken to in years, who is struggling with the same questions that brought you here tonight. Be the vessel God uses to reach them. Before you leave, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This isn't just about growing a channel, it's about building a movement of awakened souls who refuse to settle for ordinary when they were created for extraordinary. But most importantly, I want to leave you with this question that will echo in your heart long after this video ends. If God has been preparing you all these years for something greater than you ever imagined, what will you do when He finally says, "Now it's time"? Let me pray over you before you go. Heavenly Father, I place my hand on the shoulder of every precious soul watching this message tonight. Lord, they've carried burdens too heavy for their hearts. They've walked through valleys too dark for their understanding. They've waited in seasons too long for their patience. But you, faithful God, you have been with them every step of the way. I pray that you would lift the weight of confusion from their minds tonight. Replace their questions with your peace. Replace their doubt with your certainty. Replace their fear with your perfect love. Let them feel your presence in this moment not as a distant deity, but as a loving Father who has been planning their breakthrough since before time began. Open their eyes to see what you see. Open their hearts to believe what you've promised. Open their hands to receive what you've prepared. And Lord, let them know beyond any shadow of doubt that their best days are not behind them. Their greatest victories are not in their past. Their most powerful moments are waiting just ahead. I declare over every chosen one watching this, your delay had a destiny, your wait has a purpose, your pain has a plan. And your God, the God who called you by names, about to show up in ways that will leave you breathless with wonder. In the mighty name of Jesus I pray. Amen. Dear friend, thank you for staying with me through this entire journey tonight. Your presence here tells me your heart is ready for what God has in store. Don't let this moment pass without taking action. Comment below, share this message, and most importantly, step boldly into the destiny that's been waiting for you to be ready. Until we meet again, remember, you are chosen, you are loved, and your story is far from over. The best is yet to come.